new teaching style to better work with somebody or a student who needs it. And I think these things are the pieces that make this happen.
Okay, and we're going to be talking about these things all 3 days, but big picture. When I was doing my undergrad work at Brigham Young University, one of the most enjoyable classes I took was psychology. And partly because the teacher was really cool. He did a good job. The other part was that I really enjoyed learning how the brain works and how people respond with emotions and thinking and logic, and that was my first exposure to that. And I vividly remember the discussion between behaviorism and developmental psychology. And an experiment that they did is they had this maze, and they had these cute little kitty cats. And the cat was supposed to go all the way through the maze and get to the treat at the end. And so they took one cat and they strapped it down onto a cart and drove it through the maze several times. Actually showed it the path to go through the maze several times. And then they had the control cat, and they did nothing with that cat. And so the test time came, and so they let both cats loose, I guess individually. They did the maze. Which cat did the best? Which one made it through the maze the best?
The control cat.
The control cat, the one that had to figure it out on its own. And that right there planted a seed in my brain and serves as the foundation for what I believe education is all about. That we construct our knowledge by our experiences, but what we experience is how we gain knowledge. That's what I believe, and there's a term for that, constructivism. But that's really what Mix It Up is all about. You've got math and you've got science, and you're trying to help these kids figure out how to make it work. And the reason why they're combined is because they're conceptually linked. Those two concepts. And I think you talked about a bigger picture in terms of public education. We've done ourselves a disservice by departmentalizing everything. But these students have to figure out how to make it work. And the only way to do that, I believe, the only way that they can really learn is if they're experiencing it. Too often math is just abstract. Numbers, figures, drawings, maybe. And it's not connected with the really cool stuff of science. A true science class should be laboratory-based and should be a lot of hands-on. Well, math class isn't that way. They aren't. It's all about process. It's all about, let's get the right answer. Let's just work through the figures. Yes?
I totally agree with what you're saying, and my experience with Mix It Up has definitely changed the way that I teach math. And I think maybe before, I would be a mile wide, but an inch deep. We would do several problems to practice, but did my students really have that deep conceptual understanding? They have a process understanding. I understand how to do this, and my problem was every time the problem changed, they were like, lost, I don't know what to do. So we go deep now, and maybe not as wide, but we go deeper and we work more meaningful problems. And I think that's been something that has, through this training, that I have realized that it's very important to be conceptually grounded in mathematics, to understand why I'm doing this.
Okay. Now, one of the things about students being in charge, and we call it student-centered learning, and I like to call it student-directed learning. But when the student is in control of what they're learning, they will remember. And ultimately, what is learning? What we remember. And And if they can't remember it, did they learn it? Okay, so.
Could I interject one
Yes,
thing
please.
here? I assume you know, but I just want to remind you, there is a very good publication called How People Learn, and they have chapters on science and chapters on math. I'll bring up my
How
copy.
people learn, yeah, that'd be great.
In fact, there is a separate book about how people learn science and maybe math. I have to look, somebody borrowed that copy, but I'll bring it up.
Okay. Yeah, one of my favorite books is his name is Daniel Willingham. He's a cognitive scientist, and he wrote a book called Why Students Don't Like School. And I highly recommend it because it really talks about what's going on in the students' brains and the problem that we have in conceptualizing what is the true role of school. Why are we out there? Anyway, I highly recommend it. Why Students Don't Like School, Daniel Willingham. Anyway, on the front of your folders, the first, maybe not, number our list, let's see. Okay, yeah, so let's look at the schedule. It's right, first page, I guess. So in 10 minutes, we're supposed to go down, and you will be meeting with the teachers in Supple 223.
Yeah, approximately 10, whenever you get to a break.
Okay,
And I want to call your attention to one other thing in your notebook. Should be in the research section. There's 2 research articles. One is Opportunity to Learn Science. This is a summary of a study, looks like this. And I have underlined the things I thought were important. But you'll notice that schools that are high performing in science have those qualities in their front and back. And then there's another one about a Florida study that says higher test scores might lead through the science lab. And that should be in that same section. Looks like this. And I want to add, Ben said lab. We don't mean lab, we mean lab in field, taking them outside in your schoolyard, etc. And so I just want to call your attention to those. You might like to read those in your leisure time as principals. Notice I laughed. Yeah.
Are we going to discuss, the first thing that I looked at, it says right here, most high-performing schools had teachers who were solely responsible for teaching science at 1 grade level. And this is a personal thing that, like I can tell you, I'm kind of conflicted with the last couple of years at our school. With, do we departmentalize because of the benefits of that? Do we, keep our teachers?
I think it may be a school-specific decision rather than I mean, these are generalizations, and, they're always, this is what generally that is found, but I think it may be school-specific. I think there's a real advantage to having a teacher teach math and science, because Jen and I have lots of conversations about, horizontal alignment, which we had a huge conversation yesterday about. And Jen actually came up with quick and dirty horizontal alignment between math and science yesterday.
One of the things talking about grouping and how you work with kids, the school that I was principal of went from 43% free and reduced lunch my first 2 years as principal to 68% within 4 years. So it flipped the percentage of poverty, and it went from minority to minority majority. And in so doing, we looked at the ramifications of the backgrounds of the kids that come in and their experiential level. And one of the things that high poverty kids need the most is the relationship with the teacher. And so we found that departmentalizing, I was forced to departmentalize in 5th grade because of the content was more specialized. But below that, we got better test scores, we had better behavior, we had everything improved in terms of the standards when I kept them in a self-contained classroom. But it had to be with a high-performing teacher. It had to be with a highly relational teacher and somebody that could integrate all of the things. The teachers planned together, and they had, hands-on experiences and field trips, everything. That was all done as a grade level, so every kid got the same kinds of experiences, but they were with that mom or dad all day long, because so much of their experiences had to do with, okay, this is how you wash your hands, this is how you walk down the hall, this is how you eat in the cafeteria, this is how you problem solve on the playground, this is how you do this. And it was like the parent away from home getting the parenting that they didn't have. And nothing happened until that relationship was established. They had to trust that teacher tremendously. And once they trusted the teacher, then they would do anything for that teacher.
Except that we don't have that opportunity in middle school because we are compartmentalized. I mean, by that I mean, you have to go to math to get math, you have to go to science to get science. And so we're not self-contained, and it would be impractical for us to do that.
Well, it's one of those too, being at the laboratory school, at the university, it was kindergarten through 9th grade. And so there were lots of different combinations of how you did what you did. And so, I've done multi-age, I've done team teaching, I've done self-contained, I've done several different things. And what I discovered was, it depends on what the teacher is comfortable with, and then what the principal can support. So if you have a team of teachers that, it's like having a married couple in the classroom, but if they mesh, then the kids catch more by watching the modeling than it's actually taught. But it has to be a good combination. It's horrible if they hate each other, if the teachers hate each other. They're better off in self-contained. So it has to do with more about how you design the learning environment depending upon the strengths of your staff and what you're comfortable letting them do. Because if you have your curriculum in place and you have your assessment piece in place, then using the strengths of your individual teachers, you can get to where you need to get. And some school districts won't let you departmentalize, or won't let you multi-age, or won't let you do those kinds of things. That has to do with that whole central office stuff. Because I would have kept my 5th grade self-contained if I could have, and then figured out how to do large group, small group, hands-on stuff. The other part of it is I had separate classrooms. So it was really hard to pull them all together in one group. I ended up having one double classroom where I could get a whole grade level at one time. When they built the school, I made them leave a wall out between the classrooms so I had that space. And we did a ton of stuff that way with 5th grade, but it's harder when it's departmentalized. It's just food for thought. What were you gonna
It's
say?
so teacher-centered what you decide, because the truth is, I believe in self-contained. I did it 3 different ways in 4th grade. Self-contained was the most successful for me. It was the most successful my kids were. It was the most successful our grade level was. But all it takes is one mediocre teacher for a self-contained year, and you've lost a year of instruction. And a principal can only do so much with that. And so it goes back to me to teacher preparation programs at the university level, preparing teachers to be self-contained. But then when you add on to the STAR test and you add on, all we do in education is put more on a teacher's plate. I need you to do this, but I'm not taking this away. Now you're gonna do this, now you're gonna do this, now you're gonna do this. It becomes very, very difficult for a self-contained 5th grade teacher to do the hands-on and to teach the math and the reading and the writing and the social studies. In addition to all the intervention and the RTI and the, pull-out and the clubs and, the parent emails and I just feel like,
No, you forgot testing.
the STAR test. And so, I think for me, it just is, in an ideal world, that's what we would have, but I think we're not in an ideal educational
I
world.
want to remind you, though, that 40% of your new teachers are for alt-cert programs. Alt-cert programs do not require 40%, and that's, you look at your new hires, what percentage of your new hires are alt-cert? Alt-cert programs that are not university-based. If they're university-based, they must have 24 hours in their content if they're secondary. If they're in an alt-cert program, this many.
That's it, that's the
This,
problem.
this
And
many.
they don't student teach.
Right,
They
and they
have no
don't student
classroom
teach,
experience.
and they don't have
Student
courses
teaching.
like mine that are content specific. I teach a science methods course. And they, Texas is the only state that has for-profit teacher certification. Texas is the only
Jen?
state.
I think as a teacher who's done both at the same campus, for several years, we were self-contained and I taught math and science. And my partner teacher taught language arts and social studies. And I liked it. It was a lot less work. But at the same time, I missed those cross-curricular connections that I could make. The great book that we were reading in language arts that, oh man, that would totally tie into the science lesson that I was teaching.
Why can't that conversation occur
Well,
with your?
and you know, but going
teacher?
across the hall and saying, oh, hey, you know, B, I have this great book and it's gonna dovetail really nicely with my lesson. Well, my partner teacher is creative and as enthusiastic as I am, and she's like, yeah, but I already have this going on. And that was a piece that didn't happen when we were departmentalized, that we planned together, but I planned with my math and science partner, not my language arts and social studies partner, because she was planning with the other language arts and social studies partner. It was nice to be departmentalized, to be responsible for 2 subjects. The downside for me was that I didn't get to have those cross-curricular things, but the relationship that I had with my 50 students instead of just my 25 was a lot different. And I had a lot of students at the beginning who just weren't making those connections themselves. It was like they left that classroom, they came to my classroom, they never expected me to talk about anything that was not related to math and science. And when I did, they looked at me like I was crazy. This is not what you do. How do you know this? So there's pros and cons, and as a teacher, it's a lot less work to departmentalize, but you miss so many of those wonderful connections that you can make. But the other thing is, we're not strong in everything, nobody is. And to be responsible for all subject areas is tough, especially when you come from a program where you have not had the science training or the math training. And so I think as a teacher, in a perfect world, my principal would be saying to me, okay, so you did not do real well here, or I noticed, or where we have a conversation where my deficiency, where I think my deficiencies are, and you allow me to go do the training that I need to be better. And I think that as teachers, it's our responsibility to improve those areas where we can. That's on us, but it's
Okay.
also on you to help us get there.
And that brings us right back to that point right there. The teaching is what this Mix It Up grant is all about. It's a teacher quality grant. And our goal is to help the teachers improve their content knowledge and their pedagogy in order to teach math and science in an integrated fashion. We'll talk about that a little bit more. They are being taught right now in a correlated fashion, which is different. Okay, we've got some things we need to take care of, and we're getting our head of steam up, and I want to thank Mark for bringing up his question, because we have some of the smartest minds in education right here in this room, and if you have a question, ask it, and we'll stop what we're doing. We'll see if we can come up with a solution. So the answer to your question is, figure it out. You've got pluses and minuses. You've got, well, we're going to departmentalize. That's easier for teachers because they only have one prep, and they can become experts on that prep. They'll teach it 4 or 5 times, and they'll be experts. The other good thing about departmentalization is that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Is that if you have a lousy teacher, the kids have 3 other teachers they're going to be with, so it's kind of balanced out there. The other flip side is that you don't make those cross-curricular connections, and if you have great teachers, then my concept is that if it's self-contained, then you want the students to be brought up to the level of that particular teacher. And especially in elementary school, that's what happens. If you have a great teacher, then you have 30 different clones of that teacher, because they all want to be like that teacher. Anyway, let's get back to where we're going with this. In your resources tab, you'll find a whole bunch of PowerPoints. One of them, one of the packets in there is called the Mix It Up Learner Handbook, or something like that. Mix It Up Principal Training Learner Handbook. You could find that for me, please.
What was that again? Ben, can you repeat that?
In the research tab, in the back.
Resources.
Oh, sorry, resources tab.
Looks like this.
Okay, right in the front there, if okay, I just wanted to show you that there's a table of contents there, shows you what's there, welcome, and then page 4 is a buzzword alert. And one of the things that my pet peeves in education is that we throw around these buzzwords, and Mark might think this buzzword means something, whereas Tom might think it means something else. And so we want to make sure as we throw around these buzzwords, like for example, we've already done a couple, constructivism, we've done teacher-centered versus student-centered. What do those really mean? This is your opportunity to keep track of those, and especially on your campuses. Same thing is going to happen with your teachers. They might be thinking teacher-centered means one thing, but it really doesn't. So keep track of the buzzwords, and I'll try to remind you. The next thing I want you to do is look at the next page, which is a math attitudinal survey and a science attitudinal survey. If you wouldn't mind taking just a minute and evaluating your own math and science perspectives. And then right after that, well, I'll give you a couple minutes for that. Should be real easy.